Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome, everybody, to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We've got a fantastic show for you today. As usual, we'll be joined by our very good friend and a wonderful speaker, our nutritionist, who's got a fantastic story to share with us in just a moment. Jeff Harvey will be joining us. But before we do that, I would like to welcome, of course, our assistant producer joining me live from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Treva Knott is on with us. Hi, Treva. How are you today?
Hello.
Glad to have you back. We missed you last week.
Mm-hmm. I missed you guys, too.
Yes. And just so everybody knows, Treva will be on the chat. If you are tuned in at Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, please click on the chat tab, and you can ask me and Jeff questions live during the show. How is Winnipeg, Manitoba these days, Treva?
Doing well. It's rainy, and wet for the past week. But spring is finally here.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, we're having a bit of a early spring. It's been in the 40s, 50s, and 60s Fahrenheit here, which is kind of chilly, but I like it. I can still wear pants. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so thank you for being here, Treva. We missed you again, so it's good to have you back. I really just wanted to just thank everybody for joining us. This entire week has been a really great week for me and for the GIC. We've done a lot of upgrades to the GIC.org website, and things are just chugging along beautifully. We've got some fantastic guests coming up for the summer. I'm working on the summer programs, and we'll probably be reintroducing our GIC TV video interviews as well. So we're reintroducing that coming up this summer. So keep an eye out. Of course, you can find more about myself, the work that I do with the Global Illumination Council at the GIC.org. It's been a really beautiful week here in Roanoke, Virginia. I've just got to say, I'm very happy. The festival season is back. Downtown Roanoke is having one festival after another, and I recently was at the what we call the Local Colors Festival, which is a really great festival for, especially being here in the, it's hard to call it the South, but we're in the north part of the South. In the southern states of the United States, Local Colors is a celebration of all the different nationalities and cultures that are living here in Roanoke, Virginia. And who would have thought? I mean, we had, I would say, probably 30 different countries represented, everywhere from Vietnamese to Romanian to Greek to Lebanese. And actually, the Local Colors was celebrating its highlighted country was Syria, which was great for those of us in the activist world because, we all want to support Syria. But it was just very interesting to see all the diversity of this, what I call it, Asheville North. The little cultural mecca here that's in the Appalachian Mountains, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there was a pariah in our midst. For those of you that know, I'm also on the board of directors for the Local Diversity Center here in Roanoke. And I was handling the booth there for the Local Colors Festival. I was one of the people attending the booth, handing out information and whatnot. And the United States representative who has been responsible for so much divisiveness. He was the one who was backing CISPA and SOPA. He's against any kind of immigration reform. It's like kick them all out. That type of mentality. Representative Bob Goodlatte was hanging out, and he was hanging out in front of our booth. Now, mind you, our booth is a big old giant 20 by 10 foot rainbow pride flag. It's covered in this huge, rainbow pride flag. And some woman's walking by and she sees Bob Goodlatte. She said, representative or congressman, whatever she called him. She's like, sir, you're standing in front of the gay rights booth. What do you think about gay rights? And he turned around to her and said, marriage is between a man and a woman, and handed her a card in which she just looked right at him in the eye and ripped up his card into 8,000 little pieces and threw it up in the air right in front of him. That was the highlight of my day. To think that a politician who is so divisive would be at a festival celebrating diversity and multicultural, being able to live together. I mean, what a beautiful sight it was to see so many different people from so many different cultures living together, getting along, smiling. It kind of reminded me of Miami. I haven't seen that many cultures hanging out and partying together since I've lived in Miami. So that was really nice, and it's very inspiring to know that it is possible. Anything is possible, people. We can get along with each other. Just a matter of do you want to choose to divide or do you want to choose to unite? And I am definitely a uniter. So anyway, I just wanted to share that little tidbit with you. I thought it was very interesting. So let me tell you a little bit about my guest. Most of you probably already know who he is. He has been on our show many times in the past. A couple of times a year we like to have him on. And just recently, Jeff Harvey went through a pretty scary situation with his own health. He was told literally he had a few days to live. And Jeff, being the go-getter, out-of-the-box thinker dealing with nutrition and health, found out and researched a way to bring his health back. And he's here, and he sounds great and probably shining better than ever, hopefully. So welcome back to the show, Jeff Harvey. How are you? How are you feeling today, sir?
Well, Bernard, I can't tell you how good it is to speak with you again. I can't tell you. It's just phenomenal.
I feel the same way. You have had quite a scare, and this is not your first scare, actually, but this last one was one that was really got you, 3 days to live, I think they told you.
That was it. Yeah, it was very unique. My systems were shutting down. My kidneys were in end-stage kidney failure, and my liver had also shut down, or was beginning to shut down.
Oh, my.
And so I had several things that were going on that were really not expected. Because you know me, I eat extremely well. I take care of my health, nutrition, juicing, all the good stuff. And, I have some of the best supplements on the planet that I take. So couldn't figure out what was going on. And, they gave me 3 days left to live. So I called the funeral home and I said, all right, well, let's make some arrangements. And then I called the crematorium and made arrangements there and got all the data ready. And I was ready to head off to the other side and see what's cooking over there. And then I happened to be listening to Mel Fabregas's show, and he had a guy named Jerry Pollack on. Now, Jerry Pollack is a water researcher, and he's probably the most preeminent researcher on the planet. He's got a book called The Fourth State of Water, and it goes into what H3O2 is and how it works and all of that. And so I'm listening to the show, and towards the end, he's talking about another scientist who basically had been able to build a processor to make this. And it's the testimonials that were coming back from dozens of people were all saying the same thing. These are people who are dying in end-stage kidney failure, liver failure, and many of them in the fourth stage of cancer. and they were all coming out of it. It was reversing it beautifully. And so I immediately called Mel. He put me in touch with Jerry. Jerry put me in touch with a scientist, and we're going to leave him nameless for now because we'd like to keep him alive a little longer.
Yeah.
And so, he had literally one output left on his processors available for the material. And he gave it to me, and I said, if you do that, I will promote your water. And so he agreed, and we did it. And what's interesting is that basically almost everyone that goes through the protocol winds up coming out of their danger zone in whatever the disease is within 30 days. That's how fast it works.
Wow.
Now, the chronic disease gets reversed in about 8 to 12 months, but you're out of the danger zone in 30 days. And you can tell, you just look at the blood work before and after. And that's exactly what happened to me. So we went on the protocol, and everything happened exactly the way he told me, including my vision began to return. So that was a nice bonus. So that's what happened.
Wow. Yeah, and so let me ask you, Jeff, what were the beginning signs for you? Because I do know that you do maintain a high level of nutrition and vitality and whatnot. Was the vision going away? Was that the first sign that something was going on?
I don't know if that was the first sign, but that was part and parcel of what's going on. I've been thinking about this for obviously several months, and one of the things that may be a contributing factor to this, I was listening to Richard Allen Miller a while back, and he was discussing how the chemtrails are sequestering water, and basically they pull it into or out of where it is, and they sequester it. It may very well be, and this is just a theory of mine,
right,
that the chemtrails are actually drawing the water out of our cells, and that's what's causing all these different disease structures like cancer, renal failure, liver failure, MS, Lou Gehrig's disease, all of these. They may just be variations of cellular dehydration. Because what this H3O2 does is basically it actually superhydrates the cells in your body so that they will not devolve down into a weakened cell. And the ones that are weakened, it actually rehydrates them back up to normal. And it's not a cure, it's a preventive measure. So obviously it takes, 8 months to a year to get completely out of a chronic state. But in 30 days, you're out of the danger zone. And I could barely speak. I could hardly walk. I was in rough shape. And so it may very well be that we're dealing with the effects of chemtrails with all these diseases, and it's a perfect camouflage because depending on who you are and what your body type is like, you might manifest a totally different disease than somebody else does, but the root cause may very well be the same.
Right.
Because if all these different diseases are reversing, it's telling us that cellular dehydration is the root cause of all of them.
That's definitely something to think about, especially for me here. I think I had spoken to you a couple of weeks ago about this, and I really don't remember what your response was. But here I am. I've lived here in Roanoke, Virginia for about 3 years. I understand we have a high copper content in the water. I don't know how much of that is filtered out. I don't know how much of it is filtered in my pure water filtration system or whatever. But for someone my age, here I am in my mid-40s, and I have friends, from their 20s to their 60s, and I say, including my cat, who recently was diagnosed with cancer, I know 5, 6 people off the top of my head, ranging from the age of 19 to 60, all with forms of cancer. And And I can't help but feel that it's a little bit disproportionate for one individual to know so many people. And I'm assuming that I'm not the only one here in Roanoke that knows 5 or 6 people with cancer, or know pets with cancer. I just had a friend who lost another dog to cancer. I can't help it. Is it regional? Is the chemtrail spraying regional? What could be some of the environmental proponents of something like this? Or am I just getting old?
Well, no, the chemtrails are sprayed basically over the entire world right now. It's a global enterprise that's going on. And many of us believe that it's a terraforming thing that's going on. They're actually trying to change the DNA of the entire planet, all plants, animals, and people. So it's everywhere. But if you look at where they concentrate the most, it's always high population areas. So you just happen to be in a high population area. And so that's one area where they really spend their time dosing the daylights out of you. And that's, I personally am of the opinion we need to get a couple of Laws rockets and take the aircraft out that are doing the spraying. But that's my personal opinion. Now, if you look at this, what's going on really is that we've got to find a way to reverse these things, and we now have it. The demand on this is so high that we are probably 20 orders back ordered right now. So we're probably on the order of 2 to 3 weeks back ordered. So it's very difficult to fill these orders because we only have a few processors. The scientist that did this, he patented the processor, and so it's there's only a few of them there. And what we're doing now is we're attempting to build more. And we set up a program where people who want to get this without waiting on the back order, because there's a lot of people who they're literally a few days from death's door. And we don't want to see anybody get lost to death because of this. So what we did was we calculated up the cost of putting together processors, and it looks like they're about $12,000 each to do that. And what people can do is, if they want to get a couple of people together, maybe a church congregation to take up a collection, or perhaps you've got a civic group and you can do that, or perhaps you're just well-heeled enough you can handle it. But if they donate $12,000, we will build a processor specifically for their group, and we will guarantee them 2 of the outputs. In other words, 1 output for 2 different people so they can get the water, and they'll get that for 6 months straight, which basically pays them back for their investment on it. And that way, they can actually get it as soon as possible because they go directly to the head of the line because they have their own processor built. And there's about 14 outputs on one of these processors. So they're going to get 2 of them right off the bat, but we're also going to give them dibs on all the other outputs when they decide to build that. And that way, if they have other friends and neighbors and relatives that need it, they can actually pay for those extra outputs and be able to help others. So that's what we decided to do, and that's in full swing right now.
Now, Jeff, when you're talking about the output, are you talking about putting out the H3O2, I guess for lack of a better term, is that like an ionized water? Is that what we're talking about here? What are you talking about exactly for our listeners?
Sure. If you look at the way this works, when he originally built the processor has a specific pressure and temperature that it operates at. And then they use microwaves at a very specific frequency to line up the atoms in a very highly purified water that they start with, so that the E and the M waves line up everything so they're very, very well structured. Then they hit it with infrared energy to charge up the bond angles between the hydrogen and the oxygen atoms. And they charge it up to such an incredibly high level that it does not come back out of the state it's in. So when you drink this, it will actually go in and deliver a charge to the lipid bilayer and the aquaporin channels that the water molecules go through to get into the cell. So you're super hydrating the cells by delivering a charge to them to make them better able to do their job. And now you've got a cell that's super hydrated that can absolutely have no trouble functioning properly, excreting what it's supposed to, building the blocks that it's supposed to, proteins, whatever. And so that's really what's going on. It's a highly scientific process. It's well thought out. And again, Jerry Pollack has written a book on this called The Fourth State of Water. That's just a fantastic tome. And Jerry is, in my estimation, the preeminent author for water research out there. So this is basically a highly purified water that is charged up and structured in such a way that it literally delivers a beautiful charge into the cells and causes the body to immediately uptake tremendous amounts of this and hydrate way above what it could before. If you look at your cells, they do not contain H2O. They contain H3O2. So most people have a little bit of a misconception about that. And that's the reason why we believe it does such a good job so fast and pulls people out of disease states as a preventive measure. So it's just basic nutrition. However, it's really highly structured and it's scientifically put together so that it will not come out of its state. They've actually frozen the water. They have boiled the water. They had Buddhist monks pray over it, and it will not change state. It locks it in, and it stays that way. So when you get a batch of this water, it lasts and lasts and lasts. And so even 6 months from now, if you take a jar of that out and drink it, you're going to get the same effect you had today.
Now, Jeff, how would someone use this? Is this something you use in replacement of all of your water, or is it just something you dose yourself with several times a day? What is the way to take it?
Okay. For people who are in chronic disease states, first of all, we have 3 different types of this. The one is called 1X, and that means it went through the processor one time. And that's the product that everybody is using right now to get out of those disease states. It does a beautiful job. And we've done hydration tests on it, and I'll go over those in a minute. But basically, you look at all of these different structures that are put together for it. Right now, we actually have 1X, 10X, and 10X silver. And the 10X goes through the processor 10 times, obviously. And what happens is by doing that, it lines up more, we believe this is what's going on, it lines up more of the atoms in the liquid. And so it makes it much, much more powerful. So when we ship the 1X, we ship 3 gallons of it in glass jars because the material cannot be placed in metal and it cannot be placed in plastic because it will leach those materials out of there. It's so powerful a solvent in the body. So you only want to store it in glass mason jars or ball jars, something like that. So the 10X goes through 10 times. Now, when we ship that, we ship it in 2 jars of 20 ounces each. So it's a total of 40 ounces. Now, that material, the 10X, you can take a glass shot glass and take 1 ounce of it, pour it in a glass jar, and then you would put in 15 ounces of distilled water. And so obviously at that rate, you would actually have 15 to 1 ratio. And we recommend people drink 1 or 2 of those 15 ounces a day because that's the optimum level you need to be at is 30 ounces a day. And you only drink this water. You don't drink tap water or anything else, just this water. And so what it does is it super hydrates you, and you don't need as much as you do of tap water because it's such a super hydrating liquid. So you can actually get away with 30 ounces a day and do just fine. So if you look at that, you've got 40 ounces in the 10X, which means that you've got 40 times 15 ounces to drink over the period of time. So if you're drinking 2 of those a day, you basically are at a 20-day level. So you have product for 20 days.
Wow.
You can actually use that to keep yourself hydrated. Now, the 10X Silver, we have 5 parts per million in there for a very specific reason. That particular parts per million does not cause the havoc in the intestinal tract that many other silver products do. And so it's very good for many of the things that you might want to use it for, infectious diseases and things like that. Very good nutritional product for that. Now, we're right now doing tests with a Morgellons patient, and we're having great results. We had a conversation with her just the other day, and she has lesions on her skin, obviously, which we're treating with the 10X straight, no dilution.
Wow.
And then she's also drinking the diluted 10X. And
Jeff, I need you to hold that thought because we're coming up on a commercial break in just a couple seconds. But let's please pick up exactly where we left off after this break. We also have a question coming in. When we return, we can talk about that as well. But well, we should have had a commercial by now. Anyway, you're listening to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are speaking to Jeff Harvey about H3O2. We'll be right back.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio. This is Dr. Bernard Alvarez, and we are here speaking with Jeff Harvey, one about his experience to near-death experience, practically. His health has failed him, and he found a wonderful protocol to help bring him back into balance. And before we went on the break, Jeff was talking to and sharing with all of us the treatment that he was giving to a Morgellons patient using this particular protocol. So, Jeff, can you remind us a little bit where we left off?
Sure. We've been using the 10X product orally, diluted, and we've been using it straight, undiluted, on the lesions. So it's having really good results. It took about a week to start seeing the kind of changes we'd expected. And it looks like it's really improving the lesions. But more importantly, the number of outbreaks are dropping off, it seems. And we are seeing basic Herxheimer reactions. And those Herxheimer reactions are usually loose stools, achy joints, headache, diarrhea, things like that that are basically illustrating the fact that your liver and your kidneys are processing as much toxin and debris out of your body as possible and heavy metals. And what we found is that the 10X product and the 1X both will detoxify the body steadily, as well as hydrate the body and all the cells. However, the 10X product, obviously because it's potentized by going through the processor 10 times, is far, far, far more potent a detoxifier. So much so that inside of one day, you start pulling out heavy metals and toxins immediately. Now, that's pretty staggering information because if you look at some of the best clinical detox kits out there that I use, you're looking at 3, 4, or 5 days before they really start getting the job done. Your body's acclimating, it's starting to loosen up the matrix so these things can come out, whereas the 10X product just literally rips it right out of there, and it does a beautiful job doing it. I have been using it myself now since February, and I still am getting a very, very mild Herxheimer. In my case, it's simply a softened stool. Many other people will get various types of detox reactions. It's important to note that that's what you're looking for so that you know you are detoxifying. And the material does a beautiful job of doing it. It just goes in and immediately starts to work, and it continues the entire time you're taking it. So as chemicals and toxins keep hitting your body, heavy metals and whatnot, your hydration catalyst, the H3O2, is continuously keeping that stuff coming out. And it's very important that we keep that stuff out of the body, because if you allow it to deposit in the extracellular matrix, the matrix around all the cells, you can wind up getting cells that devolve down into a really nasty microform. And so this does a beautiful job of keeping them where they need to be at a superior hydration state.
Right.
So very, very nice stuff, and it does a good job doing it. You can also use this on your cat, your dog, livestock. It'll do the same thing for them. I have several people right now that are using it for their cats because they've got feline leukemia or renal failure, and that's a beautiful way of getting things done. And obviously with a kitty cat, you're not going to use the amount that you would use for an adult male. So really, you want to take just like a dropper, and you only use a glass dropper, and you take like a third of a dropper, half a dropper, and squirt it down their throat, and they will steadily improve because their body will hydrate. And for their water, you take some distilled water and mix it with the H3O2 in their bowl. Just make sure it's a porcelain or a glass bowl that you put the water in, so that they can drink only this for their water, and they will quickly come out of the danger zone. So very good stuff for anything.
Sounds wonderful, Jeff. We have a question on the chat, and actually it's one that I would like to ask as well. We hear so much over the last several years about Kangen water. What would be the difference between this and Kangen water?
I'll give you an example. Back when they originally started working on this many years ago, they took this to Penn State. And Penn State had a guy named Rustum Roy, who was a really gifted researcher. And he ran Penn State Laboratories. And he tested hundreds of structured waters. This was the only one that he found that had a state change. So there is nothing that we're aware of yet that can even come close to doing what ours can do. And we have the testimonials on the website to prove it. If you go to www.jeftech.net and you click on the link for H3O2, that'll take you in there, and then there's a hydration catalyst button. Click on that, and you can see some of the data. And there are links to Jerry's book. There are links to Jerry's TED Talk on the fourth state of water. And so right now, we just don't have any competition. And the way Rustum Roy did this is he used Raman spectroscopy to take a look at the waters, and these were all structured waters. And, he did Kangen and many, many others, double helix water and all those others that are out there. And this was the only one they found that had the state change. So if somebody would like to come up and compare themselves, then they should get the Raman spectroscopy to see whether or not theirs has the state change. And that's really the best way to do it, because that proves whether or not you have something that's actually going to do a job. You know, all structured waters are helpful to the body, don't get me wrong, but nothing attempts to even come close to what this does.
And actually, just out of curiosity, I mean, I hear so much about Kangen. What is Kangen anyway? Is it alkaline water? Is that basically what it is?
All of these different waters either use an ionization process to adjust the pH levels, or they structure it in some other manner. Some of them, they run it across crystals. Some of them run it across high pH stones, you know, literally. And others do it a different way. So there's a lot of different ways to structure water. You can spin it in a vortex. A lot of them do that, and they're big proponents of it. Like Mercola, he's a big proponent of spinning the water, and he absolutely does not like distilled water. And in most cases, distilled water is pretty dead stuff. But even though we're using a distillation process, ours is totally different, because we are literally lining up the electrons and charging the bond angles. Nothing else out there is doing that. So ours is not like standard distilled water. And clearly, standard distilled water is not going to pull you out of a chronic disease state.
Right.
And
right.
this, do it beautifully, slowly over time, and it works well. If you read some of those testimonials, and I called some of these people, and I spoke to them, and exactly what they had written down in the testimonial is exactly what they told me. So this is something that it's got a lot behind it, because people have gotten the results. There's many people that I talk to every day. While you and I started the phone call, I had 3 calls. And these are people wanting to know if they can get on the waiting list for the water. And I recommend, if you're going to use this, make the order on the website as fast as you can, because that'll at least get you on the list so that you can get it as soon as we clear the back orders. And we have, as I said, about 20 of them back ordered right now. So
I was just going to mention, you had just mentioned Mercola, and I was actually doing some Googling while you were speaking about H3O2, and he has a very good article with Gerald Pollack titled "The Fourth Phase of Water: What You Don't Know About Water and Really Should." And I'm reading it over right now. There's a video attached. I'd like to watch that later on. But it says here that this is the fourth phase of water. It's not H2O, but H3O2. It can be called living water. It's more viscous, dense, and alkaline than regular water, has a negative charge, and can hold energy much like a battery and deliver the energy too. Very fascinating.
Yes, and this water is not highly alkaline. That's actually incorrect. This water is at a flat 7 pH. Now, as you know, most alkaline waters, if they're any good, are about 8.4, so that they don't pull any water out of the bones. However, we can do what we do at a 7 pH because of the charge we've placed in it, and it doesn't leave the water. And that's something that none of them are able to claim, because ours, we've proven it,
right,
and time again.
And Jeff, let's talk a little bit about how it is processed, how it is used, because there is a lot of concern, especially in the alternative health market, of like ionizers and whatnot, actually creating heavy metals in the water. How is this process different than that? And are you selling the processor? What is the difference between these affordable processors that actually end up leaving heavy metals in the water or generating heavy metals in the water versus how this is being done in the processor that you're talking about?
Well, again, we start off with an ultra pure water before we do anything. And then we take that at a specific pressure and temperature, and we hit it with the microwave radiation, which basically distills it. and it comes up and creates the vapor and comes back out and recondensates. So the volatile organic compounds are taken out and all the other nasty goodies. And that's not the case with a lot of waters that are out there. A lot of them, they miss all that nasty stuff. We don't miss it because our goal was to make the cleanest water there was. And I say we because when I made the arrangement with the scientist, I said, I'll promote this out there. Well, right now, I am the only worldwide distributor for this material. And we both are very satisfied with our relationship. We've had a few people ask if they can also do it, and the answer has always been no. And the reason why is I basically am handling all the orders we possibly can handle now, and we need to build more processors just to handle what I'm putting out. So we're doing just fine in that regard, and we don't have those volatile organic compound problems everybody else does because our process starts with an ultra-pure water, and then we further refine it down and make it more pure as well as charge it.
Very good, very good. And you said that this processor, you guys are going to be selling that for large groups? I didn't quite understand that. Could you clarify that a little bit?
Sure. In other words, if you have a group of people that want to get together and pay to have a processor built for your organization, we will build it for your group, and we will guarantee them a certain number of outputs out of it. And so that way you can run to the head of the list because you've paid to have your own processor built. And that's really very helpful for families who have multiple people in the family that need the water, and they don't have time to wait for the backlog to be extinguished. So they can actually pay for a processor to be built. It will stay on our site, and we will take the output of it, and we will ship it to you so that you can continuously get the benefit of having this without having a long waiting line to get through.
So it would basically be your water once you buy the processor.
In other words, yes, exactly. So let's say we've got 14 outputs on a processor. So if you put in $14,000 to have that built, you are guaranteed 2 of those outputs for 6 months straight. And if you calculate it up, it'll actually run to about what you put in for your cash. So if you put in $6,000, you're guaranteed to have 1 output out of it for 6 months. But either way you go, the other outputs that are still there, so let's say you put in $12,000 for a processor to be built. Takes us a couple of weeks to build the processor, get it up and running and online, and then we start shipping the material out to you. But you also have the ability to take the other 12 outputs and pay for those if you need them. So you get dibs on the other processor output as well.
I get it now. I was getting confused. I thought you were shipping the processor to someone's home or something to that effect. So this is a pretty large, industrial mechanism we're talking about that needs to be built and kept in one place.
That's correct.
I see. Much better. Okay.
And it's all very heavy-duty, rugged materials that it's made out of. And we constantly re-engineer different components in it to ensure that it lasts longer. We run these 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's a lot of strain on a piece of equipment.
Right.
From time to time, if a transformer goes out, we swap it out and put another one in. So we're constantly looking for even better materials so that we can get more time out of it before it fails. And so that's how we keep things up and running.
Right.
We have another processor that's coming online inside of the next week to week and a half, which is going to help us tremendously with our back orders. And then we have another processor on top of that that we're going to use as backup. and we're looking at a new facility right now that's got a lot more room, a lot more electricity for the units. So we could probably go up to maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 units without any trouble. But it takes tremendous amounts of electricity. It's the amount of electricity it takes to make this is ridiculous. But it has to be done because this is the only thing we have that can do what this does and help people get out of these states. And, you know, as a preventative measure goes, you can't beat this with a stick.
Well, I'm very interested myself now. As I think many of the listeners know, and I have spoken to you privately about it. My cat was diagnosed with cancer, and I've been using an alternative medicine. I'm using Amazon Black Sal from Alpha and Omega Labs out of Ecuador, and it seems to be working. But I'm concerned about the internal, like, you know, is there something else I should be doing? And this is something that I would probably be interested in using with her to make sure that any cancer inside might be not be coming back or preventing it from spreading or whatnot. I mean, she literally had 2 myoplasias, and one's already gone and the other one's getting ready to fall off. This Amazon Black Salve is amazing. It literally just
sounds like a really good product.
Yeah, it's a they call it the nature's scalpel, and it literally just digs the cancer out and it falls off. It's a little ugly while it happens, but it's working and it's healing and whatnot. But
it's the end result.
Yes, exactly. But I'm interested. You know, my friends are. How do you know it's not inside of her? And their website actually recommended H3O. But H3O is something different than what you're talking about, is it?
H3O2 is our formula.
Right. They're talking about H3O, which is I forgot the. I don't want to say tritium. It's not that. It's something else. But
no, I think what they did was they miswrote it. They probably meant H3O2.
Maybe. Well, they're doing it down in Ecuador, so it's definitely in another country that would be coming from. So you definitely are the only ones here doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'd be very interested in something like that. And for someone like myself or anybody that would want to get this product, what would be the cost of let's say, a 20-day supply, like you had mentioned before?
The 10X without the silver, I believe, runs $170. The 10X with the silver, I believe, is $190 or $195, somewhere in that ballpark. The 1X runs $225. And the 1X, in the summertime, we ship 30-some ounces to you in each jar, and there's 12 jars. In the wintertime, we only ship 24 ounces. Obviously, the change, you're not sweating as much, so you don't need as much in there. So there's a little change in the 1X between summer and winter. And also, there's a difference in how we ship it, the 1X or the 10X, because in the winter time, what we do is we use very, very thick anti-freezing jars that actually you can put this material in. It won't freeze sitting on your porch. So they're very, very thick jars. In the summertime, we just use standard ball jars or mason jars, and that works out quite well. So the 10X, that actually is either a 20 or a 40-day supply, and that's between whether you're running 30 ounces or more than that. So it depends on how much you're going to drink, how long it's going to last.
I see. Very good. Well,
remember, your kitty cat is not going to need nearly that amount.
Right, exactly. I could go with the smallest ounce version of that. Jeff, we're at 56 after the hour. We're going to be coming up on break in just a few minutes, but when we come back, we're going to be talking about not only about Jeff's discovery here with H3O2, but as well as other nutritional and or other devices that can help us all reverse chronic disease within our lives. We are on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. If I can just take a moment to give a little plug to some of the work that I've been doing, I would appreciate that. I just want to let everybody know that I do have a book out that was recently published back in March. It's called The Book of One, Returning to Source Wisdom. It is available on Amazon and Kindle. It will be available in iTunes and Audacity in about several months. I'm working on the audio version of that right now. I've been getting some really good reviews, and it seems to be doing fairly well for my first real major publishing stint here. So I want to thank everybody who's taken the opportunity to take a look. You can learn more about the Book of One at thegic.org. There is a tab at the top in the navigation bar. It'll tell you a little bit more about the book. You can see the trailer video, and I believe there's a few excerpts available floating around the gic.org as well. I just want to let you know also that next week is my monthly consciousness talk. Next week we will be talking about the human mission, or mission humanity, I believe I'm calling it. And basically, it is going to be based on how do we align ourselves with our path. Many of us spend so much time searching for the meaning of life, and we get lost so much in the search that we forget that maybe the path is what we're searching for. But it'll be a 2-hour special consciousness talk by myself here on the Just Bernard Show next week. That'll be May 27th. Anyway, let's welcome Jeff Harvey back to the show. We've spent the last hour talking with Jeff about the H3O2 discovery and everything that kind of brought him back from the brink of death. Now, Jeff, when you started using the protocol, how many days or weeks was it until you started, sounding as great as you sound right now?
Well, here's what happened. I started on it February the 18th. Within 1 week, I started getting vision changes. Very, very interesting. Now, I was pitch black blind in both eyes prior to this. And so within 1 week, I started seeing lights in my left eye, and I was able to start seeing some edgy shapes, not much. But some. And this was only on just a portion of the eyeball. Now, today, and this is a couple of months later, my left eye has full field light vision and full field shaped vision. I can actually see my fingers and my hands wiggling in front of my eyes. So it's actually remediating the vision dramatically.
Wow.
And that's quite a bit of a change. Now, it'll probably take about 8 months to a year for it to completely clear. However, I'm getting changes every week that are more positive. And now the right eye has got light vision and shaped vision in about half of the ocular area. So there's quite a bit of change there, and it's doing a good job. Now, as far as how I felt, it took probably the first month for me to start really feeling much better. You know, I obviously was in rough shape. You know, I was dying.
Right.
Made my arrangements to the crematorium and everything, and I could barely walk, and my speech was horrible. I had a mild stroke during this period from the high blood pressure from it. And my speech had gotten shot to hell in a handbasket. Well, now, as you can tell, my speech pattern is just fine. I've got tremendous levels of energy in my voice, and I'm feeling way better, almost normal.
Right.
And I figure by the 6th month, like most everyone else who goes on the protocol, I will feel normal again. Now, there's a lot of these people who put the testimonials in. I called several, and I spoke to one fellow. He was really in rough shape. He was in end-stage failure. And he came out of it about the same time I did. And 6 months in, he said, Jeff, I felt like a new man. Now, that's saying something, considering a guy who is at death's door. Now, today, he works 2 separate full-time jobs. He does a construction job, and he has a ranch he operates. So this is a guy who's living and loving life. He drinks 2 30-ounce containers a day of the liquid, and he does really well. So there's a lot you can expect in the first week or 2 because you'll see changes happening.
Right.
And it's irrefutable because if you get your blood work done, you get your liver and kidney panels done or whatever you're going to do for testing, and then you go on the protocol, within 2 weeks, you will see the changes and all of those numbers starting to normalize. And we monitor mine very carefully over the course of time, and it was interesting because every week they started getting better and better and better, and now we're at the bump phase where you'll have 1 week where you have a reasonably big improvement on the numbers, and then the next week they'll come back down just a little bit, and then the following week they bump back up again past where they were before. So it's very interesting how it works with the cells in the body because it works on all of the cells in the body.
Right.
Not just the kidney or the liver, but all of them.
Absolutely, right on. That sounds wonderful. Now, Jeff, what else are you doing to, or are you doing anything to supplement this? I know you're already very nutrition-oriented and conscious. Is there anything in particular that you can attribute to helping you with this protocol?
I get an assist from several things. And by the way, anybody who needs more data on the science behind it, if you get Jerry's book, there are hordes of things that are covered in there that are not covered in Jerry's YouTube videos. But for what I take in addition to this, I use spirazan as one of my main supplements. It's a blue-green algae, and as we all know, that's very helpful with radiation damage. Tremendous levels of nutrients in it. Amino acids, minerals, vitamins, and then that tablet also has astaxanthin in it, which is a unbelievably powerful antioxidant. And it's not like vitamin C or vitamin E where vitamin C and E will only handle one type of free radical, and it will only handle one at a time. Astaxanthin handles multiple free radical types and all at the same time. So it's very good. And E and C, over time, they'll get depleted, and then they become a free radical themselves. Well, astaxanthin does not do that. It never becomes a pro-radical. It's simply, if it gets expended, that's the end of it. So it's very, very good stuff. And I've been using that for several years, and I buy it in huge bulk, 20,000 tablets at a time.
Wow.
And that's how I sell it. On my website, I sell it in bulk packaging at really, really inexpensive prices so people can dose it at a decent level. And I take 3 tablets at each meal, and that's how I dose mine.
Wow.
Now, I also use for oils, I use an omega-7, and, of course, I eat a lot of omega-3s. I do not supplement omega-6s. We have way too many in the diet already, so that's important. I take an ultra-preventative 2-a-day multivitamin. That's on my website as well, and that really helps a lot. And I have a formula that I use called Immune Boost, and that's on the website. And that's got a really good amino acid profile with minerals and things that really help the immune system stay strong. So I try to give my body extra help to keep it moving where it needs to be. However, I'm of the opinion that these chemtrails and the toxins in them are causing such a massive level of dehydration that it's basically stifling the ability of the nutrients to really get you to optimum health. So you need something else, and the H3O2 seems to do the job. Now, I've done several other modalities too. I have a scanner device that puts voltage into the cells very similar to what H3O2 does, except it does it in a very targeted area. So I use those. And scanner is a technology that comes out of Russia, and it was originally designed for the cosmonaut program, but it never took off and got used because they shut down a lot of the areas of research. But the doctors, Karasev and Ravenko were the two scientists involved. Ravenko came after Karasev. Karasev was actually the originator of the technology, and now the best unit on the market is the Enoch 911, and I'll be picking one of those up myself to replace the current unit I'm using. And we're probably going to wind up doing a bulk purchase. So any other practitioners that are looking to get a top-of-the-line scanner device, and I think they run, I think, around $3,000 or somewhere in that ballpark, contact me at 570-219-2025, and what I'll do is I'll add you into the group, and everybody will make a purchase at the same time and get a little discount off of their units. So those are nice because you can literally go into the body and put voltage into any organ or gland or tissue area to charge it up to the point where it regenerates tissue properly. And that's a really leading edge piece of technology that's important to use. Now on the non-physical side, this is a whole different ball of wax. I use a radionics device called the SE5-1000. Now this is a unit which is about $5,000 with a laptop, and it's got a 17,000 code database in it, which are all of the information field codes that you will be able to put together to adjust or balance your body's information fields. And if you don't have a particular code out of that 17,000 you're looking for, you can type it into our code generator in the software, and it will generate a code you can use in your programs. So it's a very flexible piece of equipment, and I use that every day. I have programs that run on me 24/7 to balance certain areas of the body now to keep them in balance. Now, for people who can't afford $5,000, they have a device called the remote balancer, and that device does not have any analysis ability. It doesn't have the code sets, but it will take hologram cards that have the programs in that I will generate for the people, and you can run them on yourself 24 hours a day whenever you want. And you can get 4, 5, 6, 10 different cards for different uses, and you can use it to dose yourself or others. And that unit has two settings. One is a local effect area, which is 1,000 square feet. So anyone within that 1,000 square feet will get dosed with a card when you put it in there. Or if you put a target reference material in there, like a picture of someone, you can also take one of those cards and you could send those codes to somebody all the way across the planet in Moscow if you want. Very powerful technology. It works with scalar waves. So I like those, and that unit's, I think, $700, so it's not really expensive compared to the SE5. So, and we will generate custom hologram cards for you if you wish. It's up on the website. You go to the Scalar hologram page, and you can see it there in the CHIO section. And so that's a nice device. Another one for pets that's really good. We have something called the Personal CHIO, which has inside of it 2 holograms, a scalar wave generator, and a sweep generator to take the 2 holograms code sets, which are for EMF balancing to keep you from getting your meridian systems corrupted by this stuff. And it's been tested several times with multiple people in the advanced training classes, and it does exactly what we say it does. It clears those meridians out beautifully. But we do something else that's a little special. We have a program called the Animal Wellness Program, and you can take that hologram and put it on the back of the Chio and connect it to the collar for your pet, and it will dose them with those codes 24/7. And it really does a nice job of keeping them balanced on the energetic side. So it's not a physical, but it's an energetic side device. And that's what these scalar wave devices do, is they work on the information fields. So those are some of the things that I use, and I use them quite effectively. I use an LED system as well, and this is kind of nice. It's in my light therapy section. When I had MRSA on my left leg, there was a patch of skin that was about 6 by 9 inches and about 3/4 of an inch deep. It had eaten right into the flesh in my leg, and it looked like I was going to lose it. And I took this LED, and what I did was I took distilled water, and I cleaned the wound site out perfectly. Then after flushing it, I tamped it semi-dry. And then I took amino acids, basically amino acid tablets, ground them up into a fine, fine powder, and then I blew that over the whole wound site in a fine coating. And the cells literally sucked that material in and started repairing themselves within a couple of hours. And so when I went to the Veterans Administration to find out whether or not we could get this thing healed, because I'd been working on it for 4 months, they told me, because I was diabetic, that I would probably not be able to heal it, and if I was able to, it'd take at least a year. Well, that thing healed in 4 months flat using that LED and that protocol that I just told you.
That's fantastic. Wow. And
it's powerful.
Now, Jeff, explain a little bit to some of our listeners that may not understand a bit about scalar waves or radionics or any of this as far as like the holograms and how they work. I don't know, I'm not sure if many of our listeners realize that Jeff was in the Navy in a special ops, or what was that?
I was a counterintelligence operative working on the John F. Kennedy in the Intelligence Center.
Right. So you have a little bit of a clue of what some of the stuff that's been happening for the last 30, 40 years, and everything from remote viewing to scalar wave technology. Can you tell us a little bit how some of these everything from remote viewing to scalar waves can be used for healing? How does that work?
Well, remote viewing can be used in a couple of ways. You can take a question you want to ask, like, what substance would I use to heal X? And you would structure that question in what's called a queue. And when you finish your session, then you do your analysis, and you can pretty much figure out what your substance is, or at least narrow it down to where you can do a couple of follow-on sessions and get exactly what you need to find out. Now, that's using remote viewing for healing process. Now, that's more of a passive system,
right,
but it gives you information you didn't have before. It takes the non-local mind and all those things and lets you reach out and pull data in. I've used it. I got taught by Ed Dames, and it worked quite well. The astral projection I find much more effective, though, because you get better data and you get richer data and more of it. However, you do have to be more careful with that because you don't want to fall asleep in the middle of the session, and it does take a bit of energy to stay awake during it,
right,
because you're down at the theta state and it's very close. Now, Stainer is using a device with electrodes to put low voltage, low current into your cells to boost the cellular voltage back up to what it's supposed to be so the cells can regenerate. Now, Stainer is totally different. than scalar waves. Scalar wave radionics are totally different. And waves are basically used to deliver information as a code set directly into your auric field so that your body will balance itself on the energetic side. And we all know that when your energetic side is balanced, your physical side works better. So that works totally different. That's actually using, the way they make a scalar wave today is they take a couple of circuit traces like you would find on a circuit board, and they're perfectly identical. And usually it's a sacred geometry shape. And what they do is they put them on top of each other, separated by a small space, and they charge them up. One of them will be like a plus, whatever voltage. I'll give you an example. Plus 4 volts, and the other one would be a minus 4 volts. Well, we all know that if you take a plus of one and a minus of the same voltage, and you put them together, you get 0. But what really happens is as that's collapsing down to 0, the gravity is doubling. And that's really what's going on. You're creating a gravity wave or a longitudinal wave. Some people call it a scalar wave, whatever. And you're creating this wave which travels instantaneously anywhere. And you can ride information like code sets on top of that to deliver it wherever you want to go. So it's a very, very high-tech way of getting the job done. And you deliver it to the field of information that surrounds the cells. And the people who build nuclear magnetic resonance machines have long ago figured out that there is an information field around all the cells. We in radionics have known it for 60-some years. They're only just now figuring it out in the science world. So very, very interesting technologies. So you can, like we talked about the remote balancer. So let's take, for example, let's say you want to run a program for cardio. So you would take all the pulmonary or all the cardio codes and you would put them into a group and you would download those into the SE5, and the SE5 would then program a hologram or a hologram card with those codes. And that's what we do for people. We make custom cards, and when you buy a remote balancer, you get a choice out of 12 separate programs. You can pick any 5 to go with your machine free. So that's basically it. And then if you want something custom, like maybe cardio or pulmonary or neurological codes, or perhaps dental codes, maybe psychological codes with a bunch of affirmations in there to help you quit smoking or quit drinking or something like that. We can generate custom cards like that for people with no trouble at all. It just takes a couple of weeks for us to do it because we have to take the SE5 offline for an entire night, because what we do is we code those things for at least 12, 13, 14 hours so that they last a long time. There are many people out there who do coding for holograms, and they code them for about, an hour, half an hour, whatever, and the things don't last.
Right.
And, they tell people they'll last forever, but it's not true. But there are unscrupulous people out there doing those things. We do not.
And how does, again, speaking to a layperson, how does the hologram affect the energy fields?
Well, anytime you get a hologram with code sets in it, inside of somebody's auric field, your body, depending on how much chi energy you have flowing, will draw those codes that it needs into the body or into the auric field.
Right.
Whereas using the scalar wave generator, and we can send those codes to you in a much more robust fashion using the SE5, and we have something called the Etheric Balancing Guild, which is basically the SE5 sending full-blown code sets directly out to you in your auric field so that you get fully charged up and balanced. And that's much more energetic than using a hologram. I started out using holograms when I started doing this, and when I realized that we could get a much better balancing using the generator, we went to the Etheric Balance Guild. So now people, instead of paying $62 to get a hologram that's got maybe 150 codes, what we'll do is we'll actually put 4 separate programs in the system and we'll transfer them to you, which is a total of over several thousand codes. And so that's one way of doing a really complete job, all for the same price. So you're getting lots more than you ever expected to get. And we do this every 3 or 4 days for an entire month.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wow.
Yeah, because remember, when you balance yourself and you go out into public and you get assaulted by EMF and other stuff, you're going to start drifting off of balance 3, 4, 5 days after you were balanced.
Mm-hmm.
And with a hologram, if you are wearing that, it would help slow down the drift. So it would take a little longer for you to drift off, but you're still going to drift. So it's much better if we just balance you every 3 or 4 days and keep you at 100 all month long.
Yes, absolutely, and I can't help but feel that way when I do my well, how should I say, my metaphysical energetic work. Unfortunately I only have time to do it about once a week, but by the time the next week comes around, I sure do need it. And it's just like what you said, drifting off balance.
That's exactly what's going on, and that's why you have to keep up your practices.
And
what do you do? Qigong or something?
Pardon?
What do you use? Qigong?
Well, actually, for lack of a better term, I don't even know if there's a word for it. I do my own type of work, working with color, I guess it's a combination of Golden Dawn practices and Reiki. Using a different energy body and energy forms and allowing the energy to permeate every cell of my body and grounding myself into the planet. And it really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that sounds like a nice blend, too.
Yeah. And but I will say, if I don't do it by the 5th or 6th day, like today is Tuesday. I'm due on Thursday for my next practice, and I can feel it. This is about where I need to take the day off tomorrow, which is why I have the day off on Wednesday. But anyway, so listen, we're about to go on a break here, and when we return, of course, I can go on talking with Jeff for 5 more hours, but I don't think Radio Revolution or Jeff would appreciate that. But we're going to talk a little bit more about nutrition. We'll talk about so much more dealing with, with remaining balance and keeping our energy up, reversing chronic disease, and so much more. So stick around. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I am Dr. Bernard Alvarez, and we are speaking to Jeff Harvey.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are here speaking with Jeff Harvey. And if you have been listening and you're interested in learning more about Jeff's work and these devices he's speaking of, you can go to www.jefftech.net. I've already had several people ask me that. Anyway, so welcome back to the show, Jeff. And during the break, besides someone asking me what your website address is, someone asked me a very interesting question, and I'm wondering how. Actually, I'm asking with them because I'm very curious as well. With the many devices and nutritional supplements and whatnot that you offer and you study and research in your practice. Someone was asking me, what would Jeff recommend with symptoms of the shift? And I'm assuming they're discussing either having their spiritual awakening or their DNA is ascending, the whole New Age aspect of the shift, moving into a separate new form of humanity. Are there devices and or ways that you can recommend to help with someone like that?
Absolutely. Those are all issues dealt with by the SE5 or the remote balancer, because information fields are what the shift is affecting the most, as well as your consciousness. So when you're dealing with the energetic states, that's all going to be radionics, and that's the right way to address it. Obviously, you want to keep your meditation up, because that is probably one of the most important things any human being could ever do, is meditate.
Mm-hmm.
But doing that in conjunction with the radionics, that gives you a really good effect. And you can, let's take an example. All right. Let's pretend for a moment that you're feeling off balance, because the shift is really starting to help you lift your vibratory state, and you don't feel quite right, and you know you should feel more balanced than you do. In our code sets, we have code sets that basically handle all of the subtle energy bodies within you, and that's all of them. And we go up to every plane there is. Now, many radionics devices aren't capable of this. Ours is. So no matter what plane you're operating on, or you feel you're being influenced by, we can affect that, and we can actually code up things for it. But we have code sets that are already built for that, and they'll do your subtle bodies. It will do your directional energies, up, down, right, left, in, out, and spiral. The 5 spiral energies. So that's only part of it. And then we go into aligning the chakras, balancing the meridians, the extraordinary meridians, the opposing meridians. All of those can all be done using the SE5 and the various code sets that are in it. And people have been using these for several years to do exactly what you're talking about.
Wow.
Excuse me.
Actually, it was a great question, because I'm going through my own, I guess, symptom, for lack of a better term. I just recently came out of a non, I don't want to say non-sleep, but needing little sleep. I was lucky. I was getting away with 4 or 5, 6 hours a night, feeling great. Then all of a sudden, I became very tired all the time. And now I'm needing 8, 9, 10 hours the last week or so. And again, nothing. I can't say. I'm very scientific in studying my body and studying my shifting process. Can't say much is going on with me personally. Can't say much. Nothing changed in diet. Nothing changed really, except for maybe the cat is healing, which I'm happy about that. But the whole idea of a psychological need for more sleep is unavailable to me. And I was reading again on these symptoms that that's just a part of the process, and to just bear with it. And I can see how well. I don't know if I would want to change it. Now, I guess this is where the integrity or the karmic question comes in. Would I want a radionics machine to help me not sleep as much? How would that apply for someone like myself going through what I'm going through?
Well, first of all, never try to adjust something that's a healing process.
There we go.
The way you do this is, let's say you're having nights where you're sleeping very little and you're waking up energetic. That's great. However, you can actually put a code in, and you can design your own codes. So you might want to design a code to enhance optimum sleep level for this state of my being, for its highest and best good. And you type that in the code generator, you take the code, and you add that to one of your programs you're running every night. And this way, you're not saying, hey, I want 6 hours, not 4. What you're saying is I want the optimum amount of sleep for my particular state that I'm in right now, for the highest good for my being. Now, what that means is that it will make sure that your energetic states are all in alignment with that. And you're not trying to adjust out something that's a natural process. Does that make sense?
No, yes, absolutely. It sounds very similar. Well, it is very similar to what I call the intention process. I do intention work every week, and it's the same thing, making sure that everything that we do is for our optimum highest good and those involved, and just kind of bearing with some of the struggles that might come with that. And if that means sleeping 10 hours a night, then, oh, well, I need to sleep 10 hours a night. And
you're going to find that when your body has to physically heal, you always will sleep longer. When I first started going through this illness, I was sleeping 10 hours. I'd get up, I'd have breakfast, get my shower, have breakfast, and then I would sit down in the living room just to allow my stomach to settle from breakfast, and I would wind up waking up 2 or 3 hours later. And then I would get up, and it's lunchtime, so I'd go out and have lunch and, check to do some of the work on the phone, and I'd get back out there after lunch and sit down and let it settle. And boom, another hour or two goes by, and I wake up again. And so my body was requiring amazing amounts of rest to be able to regenerate and heal. So many times when you're in a healing crisis, you will need more sleep, and you shouldn't fight it. You just say, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, yes, very much so. I couldn't agree more, Jeff. And speaking of that, we're kind of talking about the mindset to heal, but is there any particular advice you were to give to someone who is, let's say, going through the H3O2 protocol or any of the other protocols that we're discussing here, whether it be through a device, whether it be through a nutritional supplement, whether it be through meditation, with the goal of reversing chronic disease, what would be your recommendation, is there any recommendation for someone besides meditation to be in the correct mindset to allow this healing to occur?
This is an area where I have trouble myself. I'm a very, very impatient person in some ways. So what I would tell people is you didn't get in this disease state overnight. You're not going to get out of it overnight. So be patient and recognize that every week you're getting advances. Every week you're gaining on it. And once you get out to 2-3 months, now you're starting to see just how well you are actually healing. And once you get out to that level, then you pretty much know that you're going to get out of it. The question is can you be patient enough to bear with it, keep up the protocol, don't try and rush it because you can't, and just basically try and keep a mature outlook towards healing, because you have to remember that these cells are going to regenerate and they're going to hydrate, and then the body is going to take all of the systems and use them to get itself out of the situation it's in. But you might have 80% regeneration to do on the kidney, 40 on the liver, 13 on the heart, 22 on the lungs, and all kinds of different numbers for other glands and organs and tissues. They don't all heal at the same rate, or in the same time frame. So you have to understand that the liver might need to get up to 80% function before it will work well enough with the other organs to really boost them. So you just have to be patient. And that's what we tell people is, you will look at your blood work and you're going to see it normalizing within a week to 2 weeks. And that should prove to you that it does exactly what we say it does.
Right.
And you get that blood work every month after that, and you can see the changes. And it's staggering to many medical doctors because they just never see this sort of recovery. And it works. Almost every nephrologist out there, kidney doctor, they will tell you you cannot regenerate a kidney, which is absolute bullcrap. The bottom line is we've been doing it for a long time in the alternative health field for decades. And it's just that we don't tell everybody what we do. So we know it works. We know it works very well. And you can see it in the blood work, how it's happening. You look at the albumin, you look at the GFR, the glomerular filtration rate, and many of the other things like hemoglobin. All of these items work together, and you can see them normalizing. And when you get the blood readings, you can look at the normal range and then see where you are with regards to the normal range, so you'll know whether you're coming down into range properly or maybe you're a little high. And no matter what happens, within 2 weeks, you'll see them start normalizing.
So to bring this all down to a baseline as far as like attitude, it's basically be patient. If you are going through the process of reversing a chronic disease, I think for me, I guess I would like to word it as allowing the progress to happen. Be in a space of allowing the progress to happen and to stay there. Let it happen. Get the hell out of your own way and let the process happen.
That's true. And you have to remember something. This does not happen for the majority of the population. And the fact that you can do this with this material, you should consider yourself really, really fortunate. So don't go trying to screw something up that's working just fine. Let it work just fine, and you'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I'm going through it right now. I mean, I'm not going through perhaps what you're going through, but I'm seeing it within my own my familiar Isis. She's been sick now since I've been seeing the tumor grow. I didn't know it was a tumor until February. The tumor started back in November, but when she was diagnosed in February, I didn't start the healing process until the beginning of March. And we're now at the end of May, but we've come, full circle, huge difference. But I'm still not satisfied. I'm still worried. I'm still like, is this really working? Well, yeah, I look at the pictures. I can see the before and after. It's definitely working, but we still get that sense of urgency or a fear, for lack of a better term. That fear creeps up of, oh my God, this isn't really working. Even though I see that it's working, I can't believe that it's working. So perhaps I guess a good word to use is allowing belief to fall in there somewhere.
It's important to note that environment is important as well, meaning that if you've got someone who smokes in the environment, that secondhand smoke is going to damage that creature.
Right.
Tremendously. And by keeping them in an environment like that, they can continue to devolve. And so it's very important that you remove any kind of pollutants that you can from their environment.
Well, I've got to say, it's very funny you mentioned that because she got, I guess I found out she was sick in March. I stopped smoking tobacco back in March or April. And it seems definitely made a difference for me. Maybe that's why I'm sleeping more. I'm probably healing from all the years of tobacco abuse.
Well, you've got a lot of patches that are tar patches on your lungs, and you can get rid of those. Get a ozone machine.
Yep.
breathe the ozone, starting out, maybe 2 minutes a day, first thing in the morning while you're laying in bed. And what you could do is drape the output tube with one of those filtration stones from an aquarium over your face, and give it 2 minutes the first morning, and then maybe late afternoon or early evening, give it another 2 minutes. Then the next day, bump it up to maybe 4, and then maybe to 6 or to 8, maybe 5 or 10 the next day, and so on. By the time you get a week under your belt, you're going to be breathing much better than you did before. And in the beginning, it's a little burny, it's a little raw feeling, and it's kind of inconvenient and uncomfortable. But what's happening is it's oxidizing the tar patches off the lungs and getting rid of them, as well as it's basically going in and oxidizing any toxins in the tissue. So they're going to get a little red and a little inflamed, and they're going to be a little sore and burny. But after a few days, you'll start seeing that go away. And within 2 weeks, you'll breathe clearer and better than you ever did the rest of your entire life, because it will regenerate that tissue.
And what is this, an oxidizer? What did you call the device?
An ozone machine.
Ozone machine. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I use the Aqua 6. Many people use other ones.
I've been hearing a lot about that, actually. As a matter of fact, when I used to work in the beauty biz, we used to have them in the salons.
Yeah, they just do such a job cleaning up air and cleaning up tissue. And also, when you're drinking water, if you put that little stone in your water and ozonate it for 1 minute and then drink it immediately, you're loading your body up with oxygen, which kills cancer cells beautifully.
Oh, really? And what stone is this?
Well, if you get an ozone machine, it has an output tube usually. And it's like a surgical rubber that won't be damaged by the ozone. And at the end of it, there's usually a Kinex adapter, and you put a bubbler stone on the end of it. And what it does is it diffuses the ozone out through those micropores into very fine particulates you can breathe that will allow you to get a lot of it into your system. And that's how you do it. You just hang that stone on the end of the tube over your face while you're laying in bed first thing in the morning, and set it to 2 minutes and let it rip. You can take 2 minutes and get through it, and then do it maybe again late day, and then next day bump it up maybe a couple of more minutes.
Sounds great.
But by the time 2 weeks is gone, you'll get your lungs so clear you won't believe it.
Well, this is definitely the time to do it. I will say, in the last, it's been a couple months now I'm not going to say I'm 100% off tobacco. I do have my moments, like after a meal or something like that. But I will say that just in the last 2 months, that morning cough, I don't know if any smokers out there can relate to that. That morning cough is gone. Any wheezing that it might have had is gone. Even the allergy attacks seem to have. I've only had 2 this year, which is a big deal for me. Normally this time of year I'm having an allergy attack, every 3, 4, 5 days, and it seems to have made a huge difference just in that. And keeping it out of my apartment is very helpful as well. But I definitely want to look forward to it. I definitely want to research a little bit more about what you were talking about. That sounds like a great addition to my healing therapy.
Well, I got a very dear friend of mine whose wife has lung cancer, and I've mentioned this to him to get it done, and he's researching what ozone machine he's going to get.
Oh, good. Very good. Well, I'm definitely going to have to start doing the same thing. Put it on my list of priorities of future needs and wants. We are down to our last minute here, Jeff, and as usual, our time together seems to go by so quickly. I enjoy speaking with you so much and having you on the show. And let me ask you, Jeff, is there anything on the horizon that you haven't mentioned beyond the H3O2? Is there any other technologies that you're keeping your eye on that perhaps you might be looking into in the future?
Well, not other technologies, but the H3O2 has a property. It holds on to oxygen way better than any other liquids. So basically, if you were to take your ozone machine and put it into a glass of the H3O2, you could charge it with dramatic levels of oxygen, far more than you could a regular glass of water. You drink that, and that could really be a big, big benefit for knocking out cancer and things of that nature.
Good.
So anybody who has questions, call me. Do not send an email, please. Just call me at 570-219-2025, and I'll answer the questions.
And we'll go ahead and post that in the archive here as well, and in the chat. Well, we have to wrap everything up, everybody, and I thank you so much for listening. I thank you very much for joining us today, Jeff Harvey. I just want to remind everybody that next week is our Consciousness Talk again, and we'll see you then. Thank you, everybody. We love you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bernard.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.